Throughout baseball history, it's easy to say that there have been quite a few big personalities that have stepped foot on the field. From players who were loved, hated, feared, and sometimes all three of those at once, there are plenty of interesting stories to tell. But few players are as polarizing in MLB history as Albert Belle. From refusing to take first base on a hit by pitch to smashing a thermostat in the clubhouse because a teammate made it too warm to being sued because he chased a trick-or-treater on Halloween in his car to being the highest paid player in baseball. It is without a doubt, whether he was on your team or playing against it, that Albert Belle is the scariest player in Major League history. Albert Belle was born and raised in Shreveport, Louisiana. He went to Huntington High School, where not only was he a two-sport athlete playing football and baseball, but he was an accomplished student as well, being in the National Honor Society and graduated 6th in his class. Albert was exceptionally exceeding playing baseball, as he made the All-State baseball team twice and was selected to play baseball in the Junior Olympics, where his team won silver in his senior year. He did this all while being the vice president of a local Future Business Leaders of America, which is a non-profit that helps students transition into the business world. His father, Albert Belle Sr., was a high school football and baseball coach, as well as being a former math teacher, which surely contributed to a strong foundation for Albert's academic and athletic successes. Albert's baseball career really took off in college at LSU, where he played from 1985 until 1987. He was named first-team All-SEC in both years as well. He was the South 1 Regional Tournament MVP, was second-team All-America in 1986 and third-team All-America in 1987. But this was also the first instance we would see his no-nonsense intensity. According to ESPN, Belle was suspended and ended up missing the College World Series after running into the stands, chasing a heckling fan who was yelling racial insults at him during an SEC tournament. Ultimately, in his college career, he had a .332 average with 49 home runs, 30 doubles, 172 ribbies, 157 runs scored, and a slugging percentage of .670 in just 184 games played. Obviously, this got the attention of Major League scouts, and Belle was drafted right after college by the Cleveland Indians in the second round of the 1987 MLB draft with the 47th overall pick. But it wasn't all that easy. Belle was notorious for being tense and was described as often angry by people close to him. This caused some teams to reconsider drafting him. In fact, Braves GM at the time, Bobby Cox, threatened his farm director that he would fire him if the Braves drafted Belle. In any case, he performed really well in the minors, especially in 1989, hitting 20 home runs, batting .282 with 69 ribbies, nice, in just 89 games played before being called up to the majors in that same year at only 22 years old. His first two seasons in the major leagues were mired with poor performance and some controversy, however. From 1989 to 1990, he played in just 71 games while batting .220 with 8 home runs and an OPS plus of just 81. In 1989, while playing in AAA, his intense personality was gaining notoriety as he reportedly destroyed a bathroom, causing significant damage to it after a bad at-bat. For this incident, he was then suspended for 5 games. All of this was exacerbated due to Belle having a drinking problem that was serious enough for the Indians to send him to rehab for alcoholism for 10 weeks in 1990. But Belle emerged in 1991 with a new positive outlook. He stopped drinking and took on a new name. Before 1991, he was actually known by his nickname Joey, which is short for his middle name Joan. And after rehab, he decided that he wanted to be known as Albert Belle moving forward. He had a fantastic year for the Indians as their starting left fielder, playing in 123 games, batting .282 with 28 homers, 95 ribbies, and an OPS plus of 134. Albert's temper, however, was something that would stay. He was suspended for 6 games that year because a fan was said to be tauntingly inviting him to a keg party, to which Belle responded by picking up a foul ball and then rifled it into the fan's chest. Jeff Pilar, the fan who was hit, said that it left a welt on his chest. Belle was then suspended for 6 games and made to donate 1 week of his salary to charity. Additionally, in June of this very same season, Belle was demoted back to AAA at a time where he was leading the Indians in homers and RBIs. The reason behind it? Belle hit into a double play and didn't run hard to first base. Indians Indians manager John McNamara called Belle's run to first the most blatant lack of hustle that he'd seen in his entire career. In 1992, he had another solid year where he received his first MVP votes. He played in 153 games, batting .260 with 34 home runs, 112 ribbies, and an OPS plus of 123. This year, he only received one 3-game suspension for charging the mound after Royals pitcher Neil Heaton threw a few pitches that Albert felt were too close. Similar to the year prior, Belle was benched for 2 games by Indians manager Mike Hargrove for what he called lack of hustle. His 1993 season was even better. He played in 159 games, batting .290 with a .370 on-base percentage, 38 home runs, led the majors with 129 ribbies, and had an OPS plus of 145. Albert was also elected to his first All-Star game, won a Silver Slugger, and came in 7th for MVP voting. This year, he was also suspended once, right after he charged the mound and fought Hippolito Pichardo from the Royals after being hit by a pitch on his shoulder. As a result of this, Albert was hit with another 3-game suspension. The strike-shortened season in 1994 had Belle really show his dominance. In just 106 games played, Belle hit .367 with 36 homers, 101 ribbies, and an on-base percentage of .438 with an OPS plus of 194. He was named to his second All-Star game in a row, won the Silver Slugger again, and came in 3rd for MVP voting. 1994, however, was not a year where Belle would escape without some sort of controversy. This brings us to the 1994 Cleveland Indians corked bat incident. On July 15th, the Indians were playing the White Sox at their home of Comiskey Park. Right in the first inning, Gene Lamont, who was the Sox manager at the time, was informed to check out Albert Belle's bat, which by rule a manager could do once per game. Belle's bat was confiscated by umpire Dave Phillips, and it was locked in the umpire's dressing room. The Indians and Belle knew full well that that bat was corked and that he would be found out. They could not let this happen because ultimately Belle would be suspended in the middle of a battle for the AL Central. A plan was hatched by someone in the Indians organization, like something out of a movie, to take back Belle's bat and replace it with the Indians' first baseman Paul Sorrento's bat. They sent pitcher Jason Grimsley to get the bat back. Grimsley saw that there was a drop ceiling after scouting the area, and he figured he can crawl in through that to get to the umpire's room, which he did. He crawled into the dark space with a flashlight in his mouth, switched out the bats, and made it back to the Indians clubhouse with Albert's bat intact. This was all, mind you, during the game. It was reported that during the 6th inning, an umpire's custodian noticed parts of the ceiling tile were on the floor and twisted metal brackets were in the ceiling. The umpire who originally confiscated the bat, Dave Phillips, also noticed that the replacement bat wasn't as shiny as it was before, and it was Sorrento's model, not Belle's. Things escalated very quickly. The Chicago police were called onto the scene, and MLB even got the FBI involved. The White Sox threatened to file charges against who did this as well. Ultimately, the Indians realized that the consequences of not returning the bat were too high and gave Belle's bat back to the umpires. Charges were never filed, and MLB officials in New York then sawed the bat in half in front of Indians GM John Hart and Belle to of course confirm that the bat was indeed corked. Belle received a 10-game suspension, which was reduced to 7 games after an appeal was made. For 5 years, Grimsley's involvement was kept a secret until Grimsley himself admitted to being the thief in an interview with the New York Times while being on the Yankees in 1999. But he was not retroactively punished for it. Both Grimsley and Omar Vizquel, who was the Indians shortstop at the time, confirmed that all of Albert Belle's bats were corked. What a wild story, huh? This now brings us to 1995, one of Belle's most infamous years on and off the field. From an on-field performance standpoint, he went off. The 95 season was shortened to 144 games due to the 94-95 strike. But still, he played in 143 out of a possible 144 games. Belle batted .317 with 50 homers, 52 doubles, 121 runs scored, a .690 slugging percentage, a .401 on-base percentage, and a .177 OPS+. He recorded the first ever 50-homer, 50-double season in Major League history, as well as leading the American League and majors in most of these offensive categories. Belle was named an All-Star yet again, won the Silver Slugger, and was the runner-up in MVP voting. The MVP race for 1995 did, however, come with its own controversy. Mo Vaughn won the American League MVP that year, but didn't even come close to what Albert Belle did that season. The only two categories that he did better at was plate appearances, which you have no control over, and 6 more stolen bases. So, if Albert Belle was the clear AL MVP as far as numbers were concerned, and it's not particularly close, what happened? Why didn't he win what should have been his first MVP? As it turns out, the media deemed that character was also important. Mo Vaughn was quoted as saying, "People are looking at the whole thing and it's not just numbers." Albert, an intensely private person who only wanted to focus on baseball and be left alone, had a terrible relationship with the media. The same media that includes the Baseball Writers Association of America that ultimately votes on the end-of-season awards like MVP. One of his most infamous encounters with the media occurred during the 1995 World Series, which probably didn't help his MVP case either. Belle and the Cleveland Indians faced the Atlanta Braves. Up until that point, Belle would often refuse to speak to the press at all. This obviously caused an extremely strained situation where one of MLB's superstars in Belle and arguably its best player refused to speak to the people whose job are, well, to speak to him. Before Game 3 of the World Series, Belle went on a 5-minute tirade yelling at reporters, but was mostly directed at NBC reporter Hannah Storm. This all started with Belle walking up to a group of reporters in front of the Indians' dugout. He yelled at them, saying, "All you media assholes, get the out of here now," even though MLB had approved them to be there to interview players. It was reported that a majority of the media personnel he was yelling at listened to him and left, but not Hannah Storm. She ignored him and started to interview players. Belle then yelled at her, "I'm talking to you, asshole, get the out." Storm then reported the altercation to MLB. MLB commissioner at the time, Bud Selig, 4 months later, then fined Belle $50,000, which was a record-setting fine at the time. And he had to go through anger management therapy. Afterwards, Belle was not apologetic about the situation. The Indians told him to issue an apology, but Belle said he apologized for nothing. He then would regularly refuse to speak to media, saying that Sandy Koufax, Joe DiMaggio, and Steve Carlton did an interview and that he preferred to concentrate on baseball. However, just a week after his altercation with Hannah Storm, Belle found himself in trouble yet again. On Halloween night, a few teenagers showed up to Belle's home in Ohio to trick-or-treat. Belle's father turned them away, saying that he had no candy for them. The trick-or-treaters then decided to egg his home. Belle said, "As soon as his father closed the door, we hear a bombardment of eggshells on my door, so I come outside and chase them." Yeah, it was reported that he got in his car and chased one of the trick-or-treaters. Belle did call the police and told them, "You had better get someone over here because if I find one of them, I'll kill them." Albert was fined $100 by police for reckless operation of a vehicle and was later sued by the teenager's parents for $850,000, saying that Belle hit the teenager with his car. The lawsuit was settled a few years later in 1997. However, for what it's worth, the officers found no bruises or abrasions on the leg of the teenager who said he was hit by Belle's car. Before we move forward, I'd like to take a moment to try and save you some money. Shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring. You can use promo code JabronieBaseball to get $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. You can use SeatGeek for sports, concerts, music festivals, Broadway shows, comedy shows, and more. Again, my viewers get $20 off their first purchase with code JabronieBaseball. That's one word, all caps. Click the link in the description to download the app. 1996 was his final year with the Indians, and yet again, he had another elite season on the field. He batted .311 with 48 homers, led the AL with 148 ribbies, had a .410 OBP, 124 runs scored, a .623 slugging percentage, and an impressive OPS plus of 158. Overall, he was an all-star for his 4th season in a row, won his 4th Silver Slugger in a row, and came in 3rd in MVP voting. In April, Belle hit a Sports Illustrated photographer, Tony Tomsick, with a baseball who was taking pictures of him. However, Belle said that it was not on purpose. On May 31st of this year, however, Belle was in the middle of yet another on-field incident that has now become a clip that we have seen time and time again.
Today, American League President Gene Budig said, "An act that puts the safety of a player in serious jeopardy won't be tolerated and handed down a 5-game suspension.
The Indians were playing the Brewers, and according to Belle, he warned Brewers second baseman Fernando Vina earlier in the game not to block the base paths. Belle later elaborated on this, saying, "And I told him earlier not to come in the baseline because it happened on Eddie Murray's at-bat a couple of innings before. Eddie Murray, in the first at-bat, hits a ground ball to him. Vina comes in on the baseline and tags me, and it caught me off guard. And I was like, oh, don't do that again. Sure as shit, Eddie hits the same ground ball. I thought he was going to pitch it, and he came in and knocked him. I was like, I told you, don't do it." So yeah, Vina apparently didn't listen, and Belle absolutely trucked him, running from first to second, which also broke up a double play in the process. However, MLB really didn't like that Belle threw his forearm into Vina too, so they suspended Albert for 5 games for the incident. This suspension was reduced to 2 games after an appeal, and he was fined $25,000. After the 1996 season, Belle became a free agent. His time with the Indians can only be described as tumultuous. Buster Olney spoke about Albert, saying in baseball circles it was just a fact that Albert Belle was nuts and that few escaped his wrath. There were days he would destroy the post-game buffet. He would launch plates into the shower. He reported once that after a bad at-bat against Boston, he took his bat, went into the Indians clubhouse, and destroyed Kenny Lofton's boombox. Belle earned the nickname Mr. Freeze because he liked the clubhouse to be below 60 degrees. He liked it so much that when a teammate once turned the heat up because it was too cold, Belle turned the thermostat back down and destroyed it with his bat so it couldn't be changed again. Only reported that the Indians billed Belle $10,000 a year for the damage he caused in both home and away clubhouses. But they tolerated his behavior because ultimately he was one of the best players in baseball. Indians catcher Sandy Alomar Jr. was quoted as saying, "It was always an adventure with Albert." But ultimately, it's clear that fans loved him and many of his teammates did too. Belle would then sign a 5-year, $55 million deal with the White Sox in the 1996 offseason. This briefly made him the highest paid player in baseball at the time of signing, and also the first player in baseball history to make $10 million a season. It also came with a very unique and strange opt-out clause that Belle could invoke where he can demand to be one of the 3 highest paid players in baseball if he wasn't one of them already. His first season with the White Sox was yet another all-star season for Belle, but numbers-wise was a bit of a down year by his standards. He hit .274 with 30 homers, 116 ribbies, and an OPS plus of 116 while playing in 161 games. But he still got into a little trouble. He was fined in June for $5,000 for making an obscene gesture, throwing up the middle finger from the outfield to Cleveland fans while the White Sox were playing the Indians in Cleveland. So why did he do that? Well, fans were throwing monopoly money at him, presumably because they were pissed he left to become the highest paid player in baseball to a divisional rival in the White Sox. Then, just 6 weeks later, Belle caught a domestic battery charge after it was alleged that he hit his girlfriend and pulled her phone out of the wall. Now, let's remember, this was 1997, so no, I'm guessing it probably wasn't a cell phone, but a wall-mounted corded phone. Yes, those did exist in homes at some point. It is very important to note that the woman later dropped the charge against Belle. Belle also had to be put on probation by MLB for gambling. This all came to be after he admitted in a deposition that he lost $40,000 gambling on football and basketball games. However, MLB officials had no reason to suspect that Belle bet on baseball and ultimately did not conduct an extensive investigation or suspend Belle. There were also several reports later in an unrelated incident that Belle had lost as much as $300,000 gambling. This was also the year where Belle did not play in the All-Star game even though he was selected to it. A lot happened and led up to cause this. Belle had declined to participate in the Home Run Derby. He was the only player to miss the All-Star Game workout, and he skipped the All-Star Game batting practice. Ultimately, due to all these factors, he did not participate in the game itself either. 1998 was a real nice bounce-back year for Belle. He won the Silver Slugger and came in 8th for MVP voting. He played in 163 games as well, batting .328 with 49 homers, 152 ribbies, and led the American League in slugging percentage at .655, an OPS of 1.055, and an OPS plus of 172. After the 1998 season concluded, Belle invoked his opt-out clause demanding a pay raise from the White Sox. The White Sox pretty much said no, and Belle became a free agent. But he very quickly became the highest paid player in baseball again after the Orioles signed him to a 5-year, $65 million deal. Belle had a solid 1999 and 2000 season where he tied the league lead in outfield assists in 99. He averaged 151 games played between both seasons, batted .289 with 30 homers and 110 ribbies. He had an OPS plus of 143 in 1999 and a 109 OPS plus in the 2000 season. In 1999, my personal favorite Albert Belle moment went down. The Orioles were facing the Angels in a game at Camden Yards. This was where everyone was wearing those weird turn ahead the clock uniforms, which from my estimation, most people still really don't like. Anyway, it's the bottom of the 11th inning and Albert has already hit 3 home runs in this game, including a game-tying solo homer in the bottom of the 9th inning. Looking for not only his 4th home run of the game, but also a walk-off home run, Belle just barely gets hit on the hand by pitcher Shigetoshi Hasegawa. Belle pretended to not get hit by the ball just so he can stay up at bat. The home plate umpire then told him to take first, which Belle refused. Things started to get a little heated between Belle, the umpire, he was talking to the catcher, he was talking to the pitcher to throw the ball over the plate. It was kind of getting all over the place, so O's manager Ray Miller had to step in to talk Belle into taking first base. And this is just another example of how Belle really was in a league of his own. And then it all came to a screeching halt. Belle retired after the 2000 season at only 34 years old due to degenerative hip osteoarthritis. Albert Belle was hurt for the first time ever in his career with a sore hip. He was placed on the injured list for 20 days from September 4th to the 29th. And then the Orioles released a statement on the 29th saying that Belle was totally disabled and unable to perform as a Major League Baseball player. And that was it. A player who was so consistently healthy on the field and at one point in 1998 became baseball's active leader in consecutive games played was done. He played his final game on October 1st, 2000, where he hit his final home run in the Orioles' last game of the season. In Belle's post-playing career, in 2005, he was inducted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. Belle would then be Hall of Fame eligible in 2006, where he received just 7.7% of the votes. Then, in 2007, he received only 3.5% of the votes. In 2001, a BBWAA writer, Bill Madden, wrote a column in the New York Daily News stating that he has no sympathy for Belle, and not only was he a surly jerk, but now he's a hurt surly jerk, and was no credit to the game. He then went on to say, when it's time to consider Belle for the Hall of Fame, he hopes that Belle's behavior is remembered by the baseball writers when it's time to consider Belle's inclusion in the Hall. Additionally, this is yet another instance where the baseball writers have shown that numbers aren't the be-all end-all with the Hall of Fame, and they take a good hard look at a player's character as well. However, his troubles off the field and strained relationship with the media would continue. In 2006, Belle was sentenced to 90 days in jail and 5 years probation after he admitted to stalking an ex-girlfriend. Belle was then invited in 2015 to a 20th anniversary celebration by the Cleveland Indians to celebrate the 1995 World Series team, which he declined to attend. Next, when Belle was inducted into the Cleveland Indians Hall of Fame in 2016, Belle declined to attend the ceremony as well, which was reportedly because he was on family vacation at the time. Belle said that he spoke to Indian Senior VP of Public Affairs Bobby DiBiasio and specifically told him to do it in May or June, which is when his kids would get out of school. Otherwise, he could do it in August, but Belle was clear in telling him not to pick July because his family would be on vacation. Well, the Indians picked July, and it's been reported that Belle was selected to the Indians Hall of Fame a year prior in 2015 by local Cleveland writers and of course the Indians organization itself. But this was something where an agreeable time was negotiated between Belle and the Indians over the course of 4 years. Belle said that he was willing to move it to another weekend, as July is the only month he couldn't do the entire season. The Indians, however, were set on July 30th, and they told him that was the weekend they were going to pick whether he liked it or not, and whether he was going to be there or not. To which Belle responded saying that it's fine, they made their decision and he was going to make his. DiBiasio said it was unfortunate that Albert wouldn't be attending and they were looking forward to making it a special time for him and his family. But Ultimately, as of 2016, Belle said that his relationship with the Indians was good and that he wasn't too worried about the fan reaction in Cleveland. He stated, "If they cheered when LeBron came back, I just assumed they'd cheer for me if I came back." And then in 2018, Belle was arrested in Arizona and charged with a DUI and indecent exposure. However, all charges were dismissed just the next month. Albert Belle's career will be remembered for his dominance on the field and his no-nonsense personality both off and on the field. He struck fear into those around him, from teammates to opponents to managers, coaches, media personnel, and fans. I think we could all agree without question that Albert Belle was the scariest player in Major League history. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me and the channel out a ton with making these videos. What are your thoughts on Albert Belle? Do you think there's anyone else that was scarier than him? Sound off in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.